Good morning, welcome back. Second time trying to do this video. I did this actually a couple of days ago. One of the reasons why I try to grow as much of my own food as possible is that a lot of the poisons that they put in the food nowadays, my system can't handle. So I was given some candy, I believe that was last Christmas, and I had them sitting in the pantry, and I wasn't eating them, and I was feeling alright, and I decided that I was going to eat those candy, and over a few days now, not all at once, I did eat them, and boy, the pain, the IBS symptoms come up. Well, now I'm behind on firewood because my chainsaw was down last winter. This winter now I'm going to try to cut all my firewood in the winter, and I won't have to be doing it during the gardening season. So Monday and Tuesday I was cutting firewood. Wednesday it was wet out, so I did some inside stuff. Thursday morning the rooster was crowing quite a bit, and I went in and I checked around. Everything seemed to be fine. So I asked him what he was crowing about, and that was it. I went on out again. That day I was working on my raspberry patch. So you remember that I found out it was just the front one that was down and the back ones were still standing up. Well, I have that braced up now. You see this hoop, it's made out of aspen, and aspen rots so fast, and it just rotted off down there at the base. This was the original frame I had put up, made out of spruce, and I've got this piece of board bracing that part up, which also holds up the frame, that hoop frame. And you remember the tall spindly spruce I showed you up in the forest a long time back now? Well, that's the base of one of them. I cut it in half, and here's the top of this one, and it goes all the way along over to here. So I guess it's about 12 feet, and I can walk in through here now. So I can get in there now to get at as much as I could get at last year, and I have to just pull stinging nettles. Of course the stinging nettles are growing all in through here, eh? That part there, remember last year there was a bird's nest there, so I didn't get that fixed. I am putting the stalks to the side. I may work on practicing doing some of that stinging nettle twine over the winter. Now that was Thursday, and I came in to check on the ends Thursday afternoon, 4 o'clock, and everyone was dead. A mink had gotten in. It only bit its throat and left the body there perfectly whole. So Friday I spent the entire day cleaning up the hen carcass, because I mean I don't butcher hens very much, and so it took me all day. There's 10 hens and 1 rooster, so that took all day. And when I got up Saturday, I had serious IBS symptoms up due to those candy. I did force myself to finish, I divided up all the hen carcasses into individual meal sizes, put them in the freezer, spent a lot of the day in bed, got out, done about a half an hour of mowing, and that was it for the day. I tried to do this video on Sunday, but I was in no mood or condition to do so. So we're going to try again now. Lily, I just noticed that just now. Didn't notice it on Saturday. I'm going to have some flowers here. That's 2 there. There's a few more that'll show up here now in a little while. I have some beautiful flowers. These grapevines, they grow so fast. They are well established, you see. And I had trimmed them back, and they're getting out in the way here now again. And you did see how I had this here pathway completely clear of grapevines before. But more interestingly, all of these purple flowers, so that's all oregano. Last year I had this cut down, so I didn't know how much oregano was here actually, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of it. And when we get up here, all of these tall plants with no flowers on, that's mint. There's quite a lot of that here as well. Berkeley tie-dye, if you remember, this was the best of my transplant growing attempts this year. It's got quite a few tomatoes set, and there was a couple I showed you that was a multiple fused blossoms, and here's one of the tomatoes, resulting tomatoes from that. I let that potato grow here. It's starting to fall over now. It had flowered. The flowers are fallen. It was a mauve colored flower suggesting a red potato. And this vine going out here is the heirloom butternut is what it was called. So what the exact variety is, I don't know. However, about a week ago, I guess, I pollinated that one, and that one's growing. And then I believe it was Wednesday I pollinated that one, but that one's growing as well. And then down on the eastern side of the south wall, this is where the tomatoes started to fruit the soonest. And I have quite a few growing here. These tomatoes don't usually cross-pollinate due to the way that they actually pollinate. The pollen clicks on the stamen as it's falling out of the flower. But planted right side by side like this, it is theoretically possible that pollen could blow from one flower and flower off one plant and blow up into the flower off another plant, or some of those little tiny insects could go from flower to flower. However, I have other varieties of tomatoes I want to try. So if I'm low on the seed from any one of these, I will save seed anyway, just because, like I say, if I'm going to buy tomato seed, it's not going to be these varieties. I have one zucchini dark green, and I have one actually zucchini growing. It's pretty much ready to be harvested there now. I thought about letting it go to full maturity, but the entire packet I had trouble with the seeds. So I'm going to get what zucchini I can off of that plant, and I'm going to buy a new fresh packet of seed for next year. There are some male flowers. See, this male flower open, but there was no female flowers. On the other side, we have a female flower that'll be opening in the next couple of days there, and there's a couple others. So I'll get some more zucchini off of that. Bush beefsteak. Plants are growing beautifully and all the way along. But we've got flowers. No fruit set yet. So I don't know what's up with that. These volunteer squash though, they are producing like crazy. There's two separate varieties. If we go down in here, and get the camera down there right. You see how this one is a dark green? Now, there's another one growing underneath that one. There's another one there with one underneath. That's 4. And there's another one out by the fence there. That's 5. There's another one started down there. That's 6. And if we go over to the other ones, you see now we've got a lighter colored squash. That looks like a vegetable marrow. If it's a vegetable marrow, it'd be alright. This flower here, I think, has been pollinated. And now we can see the other green one out by the fence right there, see? And another one here. I counted 10 squash here on Saturday, and I don't know if that one that I said was just pollinated is a part of that. So we'll say 10, so we've got 12 winter squash definitely growing right now. I put those extra onions that I had in here, but onions need full sun really, so that what's growing there won't be growing well. The bees do their job. And to see the cucumbers, we'll have to go around outside. You can see one growing up right here. I finally got a block of wood down here so that I can step down. I'm not stepping so far. Save myself some time. I've been just trampling down the outside vegetation here because I got that board there now and I can, right? And you can see the drop off is just right here, and when I'm going along I have to hold on to the fence to make sure I don't fall in the ditch. Right here is the bush crop. So I have 3 plants of bush crop here. They don't really grow up and like climb the fence. Quite often they'll just do their thing and grow out. And so I'm having to every once in a while tuck the vine back in through the fence to get them to go up that way. But that's okay. I do my walkabout every morning. And I have cucumbers growing. This is the first one. There's several there now about to start. On this second one here, see they're getting fair size. The third one is a little bit of a runt, and he hasn't set any fruit yet. Now, when I go over past this post here, this is National Pickling. And I have a cucumber growing right here, you see. And here's another one. There's 3 National Pickling cucumber plants there, and tallest one is here, so growing pretty much as good as the bush crop. The bush crop, this is the 3rd year in a row now it will have grown and looks to be producing well, so it's a keeper. It's not really the one that people would use for pickling, but that's a matter of personal preference, of course. It is still a good cucumber. So going along this portion of the fence now, I can hold the camera, and these out here, this is the ones where I planted seed actually quite late. And there's female flower bud right there. Now it's awful late for a neon pumpkin to be setting now, but being that it's beside this fence, I can protect it from the first few frosts easy enough, and I can use plastic and give it a bit of extra heat. The liachas are blooming. Little runts of the tomatoes. You see? Now I didn't have any more seed for this one. This is Lata, L-A-T-A-H. I'll be saving seed for that, from that, just because, like I said, if I buy tomato seed, it'll be of the other varieties that I have in my list to try. Doesn't look like this one has set any fruit yet. Coming over here, we have another squash. Now this is neon pumpkin. Apparently set well, growing, no damage out on the front end there. That one beneath, when it was open, there was no male flower to pollinate it, so I don't think that'll come to anything. But we're up to 13 winter squash now. This is a beautiful plant when it grows good. You see it's suffering flea beetle damage like crazy now. It doesn't like the conditions here. It should have enough nutrients in the soil. It was rather warm, so it shouldn't be the temperature, but there's something about the atmosphere here it doesn't like. So unless you had a conservatory or a greenhouse you wanted to grow it in, it's apparently not a good plant for Newfoundland. This is supposed to be a bunching onion, and is not doing very well as a bunching onion. I wanted them because I wanted to do some pickled onions. I was thinking bunching onions, you get little small onions, right? And Greta from Greta's Garden, apparently she has a pickling onion variety. So that's what I have to search for next year, to see if I can get a pickling onion that would just give me little small onions. Peas are just starting now. That is because I wasn't intending to plant peas, and then when I got this far with the preparing ground, I said, I'll shove a few peas in along, and then we had the very hot summer, so I mean July, so they wouldn't grow in that anyway. And now that the weather's cooled down, they'll grow, and they'll continue to grow right up until heavy frost, because they can survive light frost. They'll grow right up onto heavy frost and produce peas. They're the edible pod peas. I have several neon pumpkin plants there. The thing about winter squash, you can eat them when they're immature. So if they set fruit, I mean the last of August for that matter, at any time early enough to get anything growing, I'll let them do so. I had immature winter squash before and I liked it. So it's just that they're bred to be best when they're fully mature. Yeah, just this one is the nicest one. It is blooming out correctly from the top, and then it'll go all the way down, eh? I put the potatoes in there. I kind of wasn't expecting them to come up because I knew that from previous experience that potatoes might have trouble going through the grass clippings, and maybe Ruth Stout had hay, and potatoes can grow up through hay easy enough. Not hay, straw. And potatoes can grow up through straw easy enough. I started to work on the grapevines. This one is not big enough yet, so I couldn't get it trained, and in trying to do so, I broke one of the branches. That's why that one's dead. So coming all along here, none of the potatoes that I set here are coming up. And you see this grapevine, I was able to get it splayed out along the fence, and it's just flat along the fence there now. There's grapes growing on it. And then I continued on along. See St. John's wort, that grows big, and you don't need very much of it to supply one or two people. I looked in here, and you see there's a potato down there that was uncovered, and I figured it was an animal that done it. And the way that the mulch is there, I'm thinking maybe it was right. And then I came around this side, and I noticed that I had some uncovered, and there's one down here, see, sending out sprouts. There's a little sprout on that one over there. So I said to myself, well, what I'll do is I'll let those sprouts grow up a bit, and then I'll put mulch around them afterwards, and we'll see what happens right there. Apparently we're not going to get anything along the fence. It's mulch put around the trees. See, when you the advantage to having a meadow that you mow, it is green manure, and then you get it into little clippings like that, and it smothers out the other stuff below, and what does grow up through it is easy to weed out then. And so that's what I'm doing most of the places. And instead of putting tarps down to kill things stuff off, I mean, over time you just slowly expand your areas by putting down something like that, and later on planting into it, especially if you're planting perennials. The yellow campaign here, I thought it was supposed to flower in the second year, and maybe it was, and it just hasn't bothered yet. Or does it flower late? So I've got 4 plants here that they're growing, they just haven't bothered to flower yet. The plants, most of the plants are fairly strong. Next year I'll work on that. I kind of had an issue because I had these sods piled up here, sort of slugs. They go out and they hide in this, and then when you get a wet day like today, actually surprisingly there's not many there. I've seen some days, if it was raining, they'd be out there like crazy. But I started to dig away at the sods here, remove them, and carry them off. And I pulled out a wasp nest. They look like the other paper wasp in shape and kind of striping, but they're black. And I know that there's another nest in there somewhere. Now, when I get a chance, I'll start to walk away out here anyway, but I had disturbed that one, so that's why I stopped there at that point, and I never got back to it yet. Jerusalem artichoke is doing well, and these plants, once the slugs had cleaned up those underside leaves, they're not doing as bad, but as you can see, there's a couple slugs there now. This one looks like it's bolting. I don't mind. This is a broccoli thing. It doesn't put out a head of broccoli, it puts out sprouting broccoli. That's what it is. I think I'm going to have to cut back the size of this again. I can't do it right now because of the rain last night and it's all spread down. You kind of want to wait for this type of thing to dry off and see what it's going to set like when it's dry, and then trim it at that point. Now here is the other potatoes. Put them out separately, remember, and because they're in soil they all come up nicely. I had 2 stragglers, but this one here now is coming along, and there's one over right there that's just barely out of the soil. The variety is superior, and I'm told that they were a very good producer. In this bed here, if they're not fading by the time frost comes, I can easily cover them, protect them from the first few frosts. So I should have no problem bringing these to full maturity. It seems to have slowed down. It had its burst of growth in June, but it may start now. So maybe red mulberry doesn't like that high temperature either, and that's just, it slowed down for July. And we'll see now over the rest of this growing season. Of course, it's got a couple months whether or not it starts to pick up again. Here's another one that I have to trim. I can trim this with that edge trimmer, right? But it's getting big, so I'm just gonna go over it and make it into a kind of a globe shaped thing. So the flowers are starting to open on this. I'll get myself quite a few. That is a nice lettuce. It's nice in looks and it's nice in taste. So I'll get quite a few lettuce seed out of that. And I'll have lettuce seed in the compost, of course. And so I'll have volunteer lettuce popping up all over. Well, I harvested the cherries, but I didn't get as many cherries as I thought I would get in the spring. So I really didn't get enough to make bottles worth. I ended up eating them. Now this is a pity, and it's one of those questions of a chicken and egg question. But you see, the tent caterpillars, did they weaken the tree, or did they come to this tree because the tree was weakened, right? However, the black knot has taken over this like crazy, all up on every branch. So I'm going to have to cut this right back to the trunk now. Cut every branch off it. I would like to do it now because I walk by and it looks so ugly. But the other thing is, it's still producing quite a lot of plums. So I'm wanting to get fresh plums this year, and of course once I cut this back I'm not going to have fresh plums next year for sure. And unless the tree grows back healthy, then I'm going to lose that tree, and I'm going to have to look for another tree to buy. So the first one's here. This is a yellow straight neck, and that is a summer squash. I have harvested 6 squash off here so far. One down right there, almost ready to be harvested. Of course, there's a few more growing there. So the first half of that, that's yellow straight neck. The second half, and the ones that's putting vines out across the ground, that's Queensboro blue. And I put out a few female flowers in here. I'm going by and just with my rubber boots trampling down the vegetation that's growing there. And the first one was in here somewhere, and I searched for it yesterday, and I did find it, but it didn't take. So that one is not growing. But here is the second one. So that one looks to be okay, and it'll take off. So now that's another winter squash. So we got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 winter squash so far. Cut back this St. John's wort again since the last time you seen me cut it back. This is one fully open echinacea flower. There's the white lavender over there. I cut down the seed heads on the lovage. They make great little straws. The flowers on the lavender, purple lavender, fully open. These potatoes, the first two beds here, are russet Burbank, and they're showing slightly signs of starting to fade, so they may be starting to harvest them fairly soon. The Kennebec is still going strong. Quite a while ago now, I pollinated a flower with a faded male flower on this one, and it didn't take. And I ended up doing the same thing with that one this morning because there was no male flower open. And so that one I don't think is going to take either. So I don't have a vegetable marrow squash there. Coming across, this potato just sent up 3 vertical stalks and didn't interfere with the beans whatsoever. So that was nice. But yeah, definitely, you see, I put in that pole, it grew right up to the top. And it had grown up to the top of these, but it looks like it fell off. So I'm going to have to put in a pole for every plant next year for the tiger's eye. And it's producing quite well there now. Down here, that's mashed potato squash. I have one. There's a female flower in there, but there's no male flower to pollinate it with. Or maybe I'll pollinate it with that one. Yeah, I'll come back and pollinate it with that flower there. I'm getting heads of cabbage. 1, 2, 3. That's wonderful. That will be very lovely if I get 3 good heads of cabbage. That crabby is soon going to be harvested. And oh yeah, that's the other thing. You see, if we back up, you have these mauve colored flowers. So it's a red potato, but there's no coloring in the stalks here. So any potatoes I dig out of there, I know is red Norlands. Okay, so I can keep the potatoes from this one and know that I have that variety. Now I go over here, it's kind of tempting to just put them in and say they're red chieftains. You see, the flowers are the same color, a little bit darker, but the leaves have this purple coloring in them in the main vein, and even like where in the main stalk where the leaves are coming out of the main stalk. So it has that purple coloring in the leaf veins as well. So that is, and see, like you see even that. So that's the red chieftains. The trouble is, do I have any red Norlands in there? It looks like I've got pretty much all red chieftains in this bed. Some of the leaves are lighter, but they do have the red in them. So I'm tempted to put these separately as red chieftains. Over here, once again, see I've got some of those lighter colored leaf potatoes. So in this bed, I wouldn't know which is which. Sunny plot. All of my gardening years, from 8 years old, this is what I normally seen rutabaga to be like, and we didn't worry about it. There's holes in it, yes, you get a caterpillar or beetle or something putting holes in the leaves, but nothing serious. We have some nice rutabaga growing, so I'm hoping that this is going to be a good rutabaga year. Just have the one bed really, to remember the other one is not growing so good. As for the beets, there's quite a few beets among this now that traditionally I would have harvested, but what I've decided to do this year, I've let beets in the past grow as big as they wanted to grow and harvest them up late September, and I thought they were good. And this year I've decided to just do that, just let these grow and harvest them late September, 1st of October, and see what I got. See, the amaranth grows really beautifully, and it's something that they're hard to control, so you kind of got to let them grow as one of those weeds that you strategically leave around. It's going to have a really nice flower right here. It grows in quote disturbed ground. Basically, you kind of have to cultivate it. Even though it is a wild plant and the seeds will sit in the soil for decades, and then as soon as you go to cultivate it to make a farm or something, up pops all these amaranth, right? But if you remember all the amaranth that I had here last year, and now there's nothing growing there because all these other things have taken over. And here in the strawberry bed, if my ends were still alive, then no trouble. They're easy to pull up, and I could pull all these up in just a few seconds and give them to the hens. Now I've got to pull them up and throw them in the compost. The cousin to quinoa, actually, lamb's quarter is, which is another one. And then this is mallow. This is another really tasty green, which the issue with mallow, you got to get them at this point. This is one of the things that you get when they're at this point. Once they grow up and they're starting to flower, they're not really that good. Anyway, the strawberry bed is in serious need of a weeding again. The volunteer carrots that was in the strawberry bed, according to the tops, they're looking good. You shall see when we pull them up, eh? That's the flowers for a little finger. That's the name. This thing wasn't putting out female flowers, and this Saturday it put out a female flower. That's that one down there, and then it had faded. It's probably getting a drink because the leaf is still wet. The female flower had faded, and there was a fresh male flower here this morning, so I took the male flower and I pulled back the petals on both of them and put it down into that one anyway, but like I said, it had faded, so I'm doubting that it's going to do anything. Jacob's cattle, they done wonderfully this year. Wonderfully, wonderfully. Just look at that. All in through there, there's a lot of pods growing. Spaghetti squash decided to flower afterwards. And I pollinated this one. Get the lead out of the way. I pollinated this one here. And it looks to be taken just well. There's another little flower starting right here now. Female flower. So you see how it pushed itself out of the ground. Carrots, when they're growing down, if they hit something down there like a rock or something and it can't grow down, it'll start to push itself up like that. And I don't think there's a rock down there for it to hit. Which means that that carrot, if my assumption is correct, is down to the bottom of the loose soil. So it's at least 8 inches long, and now pushing itself up. It's not very big around the top, but by the time now October comes, that's going to be one massive carrot. The sun will turn them green, that top, so that's why if your carrots are pushing out of the soil like that, you need to mulch them. I have some more. See another one right there. There's 2 more right there. And there's more over there, so I'm going to have to get some more mulch and inspect that bed and make sure I've got all the carrot tops protected. The flower plant for the Swiss chard is growing out in the path, leaning out into the pathway there, so we'll go around. That leaning down of the carrot tops there was just because of the water from last night. These volunteer tomatoes, they haven't set tomatoes yet either, but they're growing up to my hip. They grew quite well. As far as this volunteer squash goes, that's going gangbusters too. Here's the biggest squash I have so far. I don't know how big it's going to grow because, as I say, I don't really know what it is. And there's another one there. I don't remember if that one has been pollinated or not. There's another one back right here. And there's another one down right there. That's 4. All told, we have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and these 4. That makes 20 winter squash growing. The soldier bean that I do have, I just got this, not even half a bed's worth, but I'll save seed from this for next year and then plant out a full bed. Pods are coming not nearly as far as long as Jacob's cattle, but is what it is. Cosmo's flowers are buds are coming out. Of course, the chamomile's been out for a long time. I really wanted to get the squash off of these two because they're called Gold Nugget, and they produce these little small squash that are, and it's a winter squash, good storage, but you can make a meal for one person with using the one full squash. It's got a whole bunch of flower heads there. I'll try my best because the plants aren't very big. So, I mean, I might put something over them to protect them, give them extra bit of time if I have to. As far as the onions go, this is my best year of onions. But it's because, of course, up to now I was just researching, experimenting. And what's really impressive is the size of this red onion. And that one over there. I mean, for the middle of August, that is a really big red storage onion. And so my thought is that I should leave them there to go to seed next year and harvest everything else. Of course, if I'm going to leave those two here, this one over here is a different variety, so I got to harvest all of that. I can't have, if I want to keep the varieties pure, I can't have the two growing side by side, right? These, as we said in the beginning, we'll let them grow so far, and then we'll start harvesting every second onion so that the other ones can grow big. And they are coming along quite well. This is where I harvested one this morning. And I separate them out, like I say, come out every morning now and picking out, looking over and seeing the biggest, where I can take one out of the center and get my biggest harvest and let the other big ones grow. I think this is the biggest one so far. But there's a lot of big ones there, so I'm going to have a lot of big onions. I don't know how long they'll grow. Just onions is one of those things you just have to wait for them, for the tops to flop over, right? Jacob's cattle beans. Not Jacob's cattle beans, black turtle beans. Black turtle beans. I think this is what they call semi-bush. So you can see that they're kind of vining out like that, but not all that long, and they can technically be grown as a bush. They're not all flopped over and tangle on each other like the tiger's eye are doing over there. They're just staying within their bed, so you can grow them like that, but they do benefit from support. So hopefully next year I'll put in a pole beside each black turtle plant as well. Hopefully that was better than the video I recorded on Saturday. And yeah, this is another thing I have to get used to too, is videoing when everything is nice and dull, so that I can see the screen and I don't have all these reflections in the video. But I hope you enjoyed the little walk around, and definitely leave me a comment, even if it's just to say hi, and I'll see you in the next video.